Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button to support the channel and stay updated on more historical stories. Life in Jewish Ghettos. Existence under Siege, 1939 to 1945. Introduction. Cities turned into prisons. When the ghettos were created during World War II, they were presented by Nazi Germany as administrative solutions to what the regime called the Jewish question. In reality, ghettos were carefully engineered systems of oppression designed to isolate, degrade, exploit, and ultimately destroy Jewish communities across Europe. Within months of occupation, centuries-old Jewish neighborhoods were transformed into sealed zones of deprivation. Streets once filled with commerce, conversation, and religious life became overcrowded corridors of hunger and despair. Behind walls and barbed wire, millions of people were cut off from the outside world, forced to survive under conditions intended to make survival impossible. Life in the ghettos was not static. It evolved through stages: forced relocation, adaptation, starvation, terror, deportation, resistance, and destruction. Every day brought new regulations, new restrictions, and new dangers. Yet within these spaces of extreme suffering, people continued to live, to love, argue, teach, pray, create, and remember. This is the story of that life. The origins of the ghetto system. The ghetto system emerged rapidly after the invasion of Poland in September 1939. German authorities faced a large Jewish population concentrated in urban areas. Rather than immediate mass murder, they implemented segregation as an interim solution. The first ghettos were established in cities such as Piotrków Trybunalski, followed soon by much larger ones. By 1941, ghettos existed across occupied Eastern Europe, including Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Belarus, and parts of Ukraine. The largest and most infamous was the Warsaw Ghetto, sealed in November 1940. More than 400,000 Jews, nearly one-third of the city's population, were confined within a small district surrounded by walls topped with broken glass. Other major ghettos included the Łódź Ghetto, known for its industrial labor system, and the Vilna Ghetto, which became a center of underground cultural and intellectual life. Each ghetto differed in size, structure, and duration, but all shared the same purpose: isolation, exploitation, and eventual destruction. Forced relocation and the loss of home. The creation of a ghetto began with expulsion. Jewish families were ordered to leave their homes, often with only a few hours' notice. They were allowed to carry limited belongings, sometimes no more than what they could hold in their hands. Apartments were looted almost immediately. Non-Jewish neighbors moved in, or German authorities confiscated property. Entire lives were erased in a single day. Inside the ghettos, housing was chaotic. Families were assigned to rooms already occupied by others. Kitchens, hallways, and stairwells became living spaces. Privacy vanished completely. For many, the psychological trauma of displacement was immediate and overwhelming. Elderly people who had lived in the same home for decades suddenly found themselves sleeping on floors among strangers. Children watched their parents lose authority and security overnight. Home, once a place of safety, ceased to exist. Overcrowding and physical degradation. Overcrowding was extreme by design. In the Warsaw Ghetto, population density reached more than 150,000 people per square kilometer. Rooms meant for 2 people housed 10 or more. This density accelerated the spread of disease. Typhus, dysentery, tuberculosis, and pneumonia became endemic. Hospitals were overwhelmed and undersupplied. Doctors were forced to choose whom to treat, knowing many would die regardless. Water shortages made hygiene nearly impossible. Soap was a luxury. People washed clothes in cold water when they could, but often wore the same garments for months. Winters were especially deadly. With little fuel available, people burned furniture, books, and even door frames to keep warm. Frostbite and hypothermia claimed countless lives. The streets became filled with the dying. Corpses lay unattended for hours or days. Children stepped around bodies on their way to fetch water or food. Death became ordinary. Hunger, the central reality. If overcrowding shaped the ghettos, hunger defined them. Food rations imposed on Jews were deliberately insufficient. In some ghettos, official rations provided fewer than 200 calories per day. Bread was stretched with sawdust. Soup consisted mostly of water. Starvation altered bodies and minds. Adults lost strength, their faces hollowing, their movements slowing. Children stopped growing. Many developed swollen limbs from malnutrition. Hunger also transformed social relations. People sold furniture, clothing, books, and family heirlooms for food. Wedding rings were exchanged for a loaf of bread. Eventually, there was nothing left to sell. Despite this, mutual aid networks emerged. Soup kitchens operated by Jewish welfare organizations fed thousands daily. Though portions were small, they often meant the difference between life and death. Smuggling became essential. Children were the primary smugglers, slipping through cracks in walls or sewer tunnels to bring food from the outside. Many were caught and shot. Their deaths were rarely recorded. Hunger was not a side effect of war. It was policy. The Judenrat. Power without freedom. German authorities imposed Jewish councils, known as the Judenrat, to administer daily life in the ghettos. These councils were responsible for housing, labor assignments, welfare, sanitation, and communication with German officials. Council members were trapped in impossible positions. Refusal to comply with orders could result in execution. Compliance, however, made them instruments of oppression. Some Judenrat leaders tried to mitigate suffering, negotiating for food deliveries, organizing health services, and delaying deportations when possible. Others abused their power, creating systems of favoritism and corruption. The greatest moral crisis came with deportation orders. Councils were often forced to compile lists of people to be sent away, knowing deportation meant death. No choice was free of guilt. The Judenrat system fractured communities and left lasting scars on survivor memory. Labor as illusion of survival. Forced labor became central to ghetto life. Men, women, and sometimes children were assigned to workshops producing uniforms, boots, weapons components, and other goods for the German war effort. In the Łódź ghetto, labor was promoted as salvation. The ghetto was transformed into a massive production center. Many believed that productivity would protect them. This belief sustained hope and obedience for years. Yet labor conditions were brutal. Workdays lasted 10 to 12 hours. Injuries were common. Workers received little food in return. Exhaustion and starvation combined to break bodies. When deportations began, workers were sent away alongside the unemployed. Labor had never been protection, only postponement. Children. Survival. Without childhood. Children were the most visible victims of ghetto life. Hunger affected them first and most severely. Many became orphans within months. Despite this, children played, laughed, and adapted. They formed peer groups, created games, and explored ruined spaces. Childhood did not disappear. It became distorted. Secret schools operated throughout the ghettos. Teachers risked death to provide education. Lessons offered structure and a sense of future in a world designed to eliminate both. Children also became breadwinners through smuggling. Their small size allowed them to slip through narrow gaps. Many supported entire families. Diaries written by children reveal extraordinary awareness. They wrote about fear, hunger, and death, but also about dreams, friendships, and hope. Religious life and spiritual crisis. Faith played complex roles in the ghettos. For some, religion provided strength and continuity. Prayer services continued secretly. Holidays were observed with symbolic meals and whispered rituals. For others, faith collapsed. Many asked how God could allow such suffering. Rabbis debated theology under conditions never imagined by earlier generations. Some turned away from religion entirely. Others found new forms of spirituality in solidarity, ethics, and resistance. There was no single response. Faith, doubt, and despair coexisted side by side. Culture, art, and intellectual resistance. Against all odds, cultural life flourished. Theaters, orchestras, lectures, and literary circles emerged, especially in larger ghettos. Music was particularly important. Concerts offered moments of beauty and escape. Songs composed in ghettos reflected suffering, satire, and defiance. Artists documented life through sketches and paintings. Writers produced poetry, essays, and fiction. These works preserved truth in a world built on lies. Culture was not entertainment alone. It was resistance, proof that identity and creativity could not be fully extinguished. Documentation and the fight against oblivion. Perhaps the most profound form of resistance was documentation. In the Warsaw Ghetto, a secret group collected testimonies, diaries, photographs, and official documents. They buried these materials underground, believing they would not survive, but hoping the truth would. This act was an assertion of historical agency. Even in death, they would speak. Their voices endure today. Terror, deportations, and collapse. Beginning in 1942, ghettos across Europe were emptied. Deportations were conducted with extreme violence. Families were torn apart within seconds. People hid in bunkers for days or weeks without food or air. Some escaped temporarily. Most did not. As deportations continued, ghettos became ghostly. Streets emptied. Silence replaced noise. Hope evaporated. Hope. Resistance and uprising. Resistance took many forms: sabotage, smuggling, education, documentation, and finally, armed revolt. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising in April 1943 symbolized defiance in the face of certain death. Fighters held out for weeks against overwhelming force. They did not fight to win. They fought to choose how they would die. Liquidation and aftermath. By late 1943, most ghettos were destroyed. Buildings were leveled. Traces of life were erased. Few survived. Those who did carried memories of hunger, loss, and courage for the rest of their lives. Conclusion. What the ghettos teach us. The ghettos were designed to destroy humanity. Instead, they revealed its depth. In the face of systematic cruelty, people continued to care, create, and remember. They made moral choices under impossible conditions. They resisted not only with weapons, but with words, art, and solidarity. To remember life in the ghettos is not only to honor the dead, it is to confront what human beings are capable of, both in cruelty and in courage.